Hello, I'm Michael Wunsch. I'm the plant pathologist at the North Dakota State University Carrington Research Extension Center. I'd like to take a moment to share what we have learned about the impact of fungicide spray volume on the management of white mold in kidney beans. Spray volume is usually the first thing that people think to change when they're looking to improve the activity of their fungicides against white mold in pinto beans, kidney beans, or any other dry bean market class. We conducted the testing in Carrington with kidney beans seeded to narrow rows, 14 inches. 90,000 viable seeds an acre was our seeding rate. We conducted all the testing with a tractor-based sprayer equipped with a pulse width modulation system, and we used pulse width to keep our driving speed and our nozzles and application pressure constant across treatments, differing in spray output. Okay. Fungicide spray droplet size was calibrated relative to canopy characteristics. In 2022 to 2024. In 2020 to 2021, we applied with medium droplets at both applications. We did the testing with 7 to 13 experimental replicates, depending on the year. We used a large number of experimental replicates because white mold disease pressure tends to be spatially inconsistent, and by having a large number of experimental replicates, we improve the probability that every treatment will end up on areas of high versus low disease pressure the same number of times. We assessed white mold at or near dry bean maturity by assessing every plant individually for white mold severity in at least half the plot. And then we harvested by essentially knifing the beans. We clipped them at the base, we windrowed them, and then passed them to the combine. The reason why we knifed the beans and we did not straight cut them is because usually we see some degree of lodging, i.e. standability issues, and the standability issues are typically not very well correlated to the disease severity. And if we were to straight cut them, we'd be introducing a lot of variability into our yield data because of the differences in lodging. So by taking the extra effort to knife these, we ensure that our yield data accurately reflect the impact of these management strategies on yield and under white mold pressure. We applied supplemental irrigation as needed to establish the disease pressure necessary to learn the impact, what impact spray volume has. This chart provides additional details on our methods. The driving speed at which we made the application is specified. The nozzles, we use T-jet nozzles. Those nozzles are specified along with application pressures and the associated droplet sizes. The application interval, we made 2 applications, and the application interval of the fungicide applications is specified, as well as the experimental replicates. And I've also specified the fungicide applied. We applied Topsin or generic Topsin at 40 fluid ounces in the first application from 2021 to 2024, followed by Endura in those years. In 2020, we applied Endura twice sequentially. As I mentioned previously, we modified pulse width as needed to maintain the same driving speed, nozzles, and application pressures across spray volume treatments. We manually set the pulse width based on the measured spray output, and we manually set the driving speed. Okay, this manual setting of the pulse width was done after the fungicide was in the tank. We mixed up the fungicide, we had it in the tank, and then we ran the sprayer for precisely 10.0 seconds, collecting all the output from each nozzle and measuring that output. If that output was not precisely at the level needed for the target spray volume, we adjusted the pulse width, we measured again until we had it perfect. Applications were made with this tractor-mounted sprayer. We're spraying a 10-foot width with full nozzle overlap. And what you'll notice is that there's a driving pass for the tractor. That driving pass is smoothed out with a strawberry cultivator prior to application. That ensures that there are no big bumps and that the boom will be consistent and not be swaying. We want those nozzles at that 20-inch height recommended above the canopy for the 110-degree T-jet nozzles. Now, what you'll notice in the video that I play in a moment is that the sprayer operator, he turns on the boom right before he gets to that blue flag, and then he keeps it running until he gets to the second blue flag. And then he's got a short distance before he hits the next color flag, which in this case is yellow, and that's his transition zone for turning on and off that sprayer while he's driving. Okay, and in those transition zones, we're not assessing disease, we're not harvesting, it's just filler crop that exists specifically for turning on and off the boom. On the front end, that's that distance between that white flag and that blue flag. That's a non-harvested area. Okay, So with that, I will go ahead and play the video so you can see the application process. This video was taken in soybeans, but the exact same process was utilized in dry beans. And notice how he gets that treatment turned off before he hits that yellow flag. The start of that yellow flag is the start of the new plot. Okay, this chart on this slide gives all the canopy characteristics associated with every application that we made, as well as the delta T values when we made those applications. So delta T is the evaporative potential of the air. So this is the likelihood that those droplets will evaporate before they hit the crop canopy. Delta T values between 3.0 and 9.0 are considered optimal. Okay, delta T values from 1 to 3 are considered marginal, and delta T values above 9 are between 9 and 10 are considered marginal. What you'll notice here is that only one of these studies was conducted with marginal delta T values. Everything else was in the optimal range. So in 2022, application 1 went in when we had high evaporative potential, and application 2 went in when we went very low evaporative potential. Now, low evaporative potential can be a problem because you can be more inclined to drift. You also typically have the canopy wet with dew under those conditions, which can impact the deposition of the product on the leaf. And but otherwise, everything was done under optimal conditions. We never sprayed in an inversion, and we always made sure we did not spray when winds were very high either. This slide provides detailed results across all 7 studies that we conducted. We have white mold severity data. This is the percent of the canopy exhibiting symptoms of white mold at or near dry bean maturity, and then the kidney bean yields. I've highlighted in a yellow-brown color the lowest disease values across all treatments and the highest yields across all treatments. Now, these are numerical optimums, are noted irrespective of whether there's statistical separation or not. What you'll notice right away is in that 5 of the 7 studies, we optimized our disease management and our yields, at least numerically, with a 25-gallon-acre spray volume. In 2 of the 7 studies, there was absolutely no response to spray volume. Now, in those 5 studies where we did optimize our white mold management was 25 gallons an acre, you'll note if you look at this in detail, only one of those studies did we see actually a stepwise improvement in white mold management as we increased from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 gallons an acre. And that is the study conducted in 2021 on Dynasty dark red kidneys. In the rest of the studies, there was no response to spray volume between 10 and 20 gallons an acre, and then an apparent modest response when we got to 25 gallons an acre. Looking at these results, combined analysis across the 7 studies in another way, here you have a bar graph showing the averages and then a scatter plot showing the yield gain conferred by the fungicide. The circles show the response from individual studies, and the bars show the average response across studies. What you can see is that we see absolutely no response to spray volume between 10 and 20 gallons an acre, and there appears to be a modest response to spray volume only as you move up to 25 gallons an acre. So what these results suggest is that we only start to see a response to fungicide spray volume for white mold management in kidney beans when we reach a 25 gallon acre spray volume, and even then that response is quite weak and inconsistent. We saw absolutely no response to spray volume between 10 and 15 gallons an acre or 10 and 20 gallons an acre. What these results suggest to me is that spray volume is probably not the most effective tool that we can utilize to improve the performance of our fungicides for management of white mold in kidney beans. I would suggest that if you are interested in improving the performance of your fungicides against white mold in kidney beans, that you focus first on some of the other tools that we have shown to be highly effective. First off, the application timing, and then second, the interval between applications and the number of applications. Those tools appear to be highly effective at improving fungicide performance. Fungicide droplet size also appears to be a much more effective tool than spray volume at improving fungicide performance. That said, much of this testing was conducted under optimal spray conditions. We might see a stronger response to spray volume if we did the testing under suboptimal spray conditions. Again, we did not spray when we had an inversion. We did not spray when we had high winds. We sprayed in all studies except one when we had optimal delta T values. The situation in which you're most likely, at least theoretically, to see a response to this fungicide spray volume is when you are spraying when the relative humidity is very, very low. Okay, and we did not do much testing under those circumstances, and I am not in a position to be able to know what extent of a response to spray volume you might see under those conditions. Before I close, I'd like to give sincere thanks to my staff, Aaron Faust, Sven Collis, Jesse Hafner, Gabby Henson. These individuals are highly dedicated, they work long hours, and it is their efforts that make this research possible. I'd also like to give sincere thanks to North Harvest Bean Growers Association and the North Dakota Crop Protection Product Harmonization Registration Board, administered by the North Dakota Department of Agriculture. These two funding agencies provided the grant funding necessary to conduct this project, pay for the salaries associated with doing this work, as well as the associated supplies and equipment repairs. I would give sincere thanks to the private companies who do contract fungicide testing with us, because it is the funds from that testing that allows us to have the farm equipment to actually do this work. We wouldn't have a plot combine, we wouldn't have that sprayer that you saw in that video, or the tractor you saw in that video, and some of our other very important pieces of equipment without that funding, because that's the funding we use to purchase that equipment. Finally, I'd like to give sincere thanks to Bollingburg Seeds, Green Valley Bean Company, and Kelly Bean Company in Hatton that have donated the seeds for our white mold management research in dry beans year in, year out. I really appreciate the willingness to first off source seed for us, and then above that actually give it to us. It's very appreciated. So if you see Kurt, John, or Dean, give them a word of thanks. And with that, thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this research is of use to you as you seek to improve your operations.